and for the financial mechanism of the convention and our cooperation with Jeff. And I'm joined by my colleague Chantal Robichaud. Now, focusing on the implementation of ACP MEA 3, I would like to extend great thanks on behalf of CBD to the implementing partners, UNEP and FAO, and to the regional organizations, SPREP, CARICOM, and AU Commission, which are such important regional implementing partners of the CBD, supporting their member states in the implementation of the convention and its protocols, as well as we've already heard, as well as their participation in the intergovernmental processes and negotiations. And I'd also like to pay tribute to all the regional conventions that we've heard from, which also contribute to the implementation of the conventions and will play an important part in the implementation of the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework. And it's important to remember that this will be a universal framework on biodiversity for all organizations and related conventions. And of course, great thanks to EU and OACPS. And in that regard, I would just like to highlight to you the importance of this program to the CBD and to its objectives related to cooperation and synergies with related instruments. Now, the CBD has universal participation, bar one country, and all member states of ACP are parties to the CBD. As I say, I'll try to keep my remarks short, but as we've heard from the rich presentations and discussions yesterday and today, CBD and its implementation and support to the preparation of the Global Biodiversity Framework has been at the center of many of the activities of the project over the last year, including those reported by UNEP and FAO colleagues. And this will obviously remain the case going forward. So looking forward from the perspective of the CBD Secretariat, key points that can be supported by the program at the regional levels in line with our regional engagement and priorities include, and I'll just touch on a few of them. One, the continuing negotiations of the Global Biodiversity Framework and preparations for COP15. Secondly, capacity building and technical and scientific cooperation, which we've heard a lot about over the last couple of days. Thirdly, the planning frameworks provided by the national biodiversity strategies and action plans, and planning for the review and monitoring, enhanced review and monitoring of the convention and its protocols, and in particular the Global Biodiversity Framework. And then if we've got time, I would like perhaps to say a few words about youth, which has been highlighted as a very important stakeholder and which the project has been contributing. So looking first at the negotiations and preparation of the GBF and towards COP15, as you'll all be aware by now, unfortunately we've had to postpone the next series of meetings, our subsidiary body meetings and the open-ended working group on the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework that were scheduled to take place in Geneva in January. So we're already looking at alternatives, starting with March, but inevitably this may also mean that we need to be looking at moving the COP back a little bit, hopefully not by much. So obviously the program has an important role in continuing to engage and support the regional groups in their preparations for the subsidiary meetings, as well as the COP itself, and very importantly in the preparation of the Global Biodiversity Framework. I would add that concurrently the negotiations of the GEF 8th replenishment are ongoing, and I think there's an important role, and here I'm really reaching out to our parties and member states in encouraging close liaison between national counterparts responsible for GEF on the one hand and CBD on the other. Now, an important element related to the negotiation of the GBF, as we've heard in remarks earlier, relates to access and benefit sharing and digital sequence information, DSI, which are very important to the negotiation of the GBF, and we've heard this in earlier discussion. For example, being given great importance by the African group. Now, perhaps at this point, I'd also just like to extend great appreciation to OACPS Council of Ministers for the first resolution that we heard about, that was specifically focused on biodiversity, focusing on a strong call for the negotiation of the GBF. So thinking secondly about capacity building and technical and scientific cooperation.
You have 3 minutes left. Thank you.
2 minutes, okay. Human and institutional capacity building and development are very important, both in their own right and will be important to the GBF, as well as technical and scientific cooperation. We've heard about South-South cooperation and the exchange of knowledge, tools and technologies. Among other things, CBD has a BioBridge initiative promoting technical cooperation through practical projects with small grant funding, and we're looking for ways with assistance of the ACP project to establish partnership with SPREP, CARICOM and African Union Commission as regional implementing hubs, and for that matter actually extending this initiative to other biodiversity related conventions. So this is something that we want to look at strongly going forward. MBSAPs and the revision and alignment of existing national biodiversity strategies and action plans will be essential to the implementation of the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework, as will be an enhanced monitoring and reporting framework to which the project can also contribute. Perhaps, given that time is short, just a few words about youth in the regions. Thanks very much to UNEP for their initial work in this regard. I'd like to draw attention to the global biodiversity, the Global Youth Biodiversity Network, which is a network of hundreds of youth organizations composed of 46 chapters, including national chapters, and it's present. It has national chapters or affiliated groups in many of the ACP countries, and therefore I would like to draw the attention of delegates from the ACP states, as well as our great regional partners in SPREP and CARICOM and AU Commission in looking at ways that we can build on existing initiatives that Gibbon is taking with respect to youth engagement in the preparation of the Global Biodiversity Framework and ultimately to its implementation. Many thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, and sorry for pressing you, but you can be reassured that we are fully supportive, and Bala can confirm, but we've been also steering the program in such a way that we would support the three pillars that you mentioned: negotiation, capacity building, implementation, and of course the youth dimension. So on the side of the Commission, we've been really supporting, ready to support the work of the Convention, especially in view of the COPs, and maybe also adding for you all that as part of our future programming, a lot of our partner countries have chosen to work in biodiversity related issues, also actually on pollution and on forestry, on agroecology, on the green dimension. And so we foresee also programs at national level that will allow us to support your work and implement the provision of the Global Biodiversity Framework, but also other dimensions related. Thank you. And I see Elena on the screen. Good afternoon, Elena. Please, the floor is yours for the presentation of the work of the European Environmental Bureau.
Thank you. Let me see if I can see you. Good afternoon, good morning, everybody. I think you can see my screen, right? Let me see, I'm trying to go into presentation mode.
Yes, we can see it. You can click on slideshow, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. So my name is Elena Limberi Disetimo. I work for the European Environmental Bureau and the Zero Mercury Working Group. We have prepared this presentation with my colleague Irina, who has also been hired under this program for the beginning of the year. So just shortly, for those who may not be familiar with our organization, the EEB is the largest network of environmental citizens organizations. We're based in Brussels. We have over 170 member organizations from more than 35 countries, representing some 30 million individual members and supporters. Together with the Mercury Policy Project, which is a US NGO, in 2005, we created the Zero Mercury Working Group, which is an international coalition with over 110 NGOs now in around over 55 countries. The aim of the group is to reduce and eliminate mercury use, release and exposure as possible, and support the implementation and the enforcement of the Minamata Convention now that it is in place. Our work is two-pronged. From one side, we promote strong policies at national and global level, but on the other side, we support developing countries and NGOs on the ground. The focus of this work under the ACP program is the formulation of specific strategies addressing mainly the mercury-added products phase-out provisions of the Minamata Convention, and also trying to contribute to the development of the national action plans for reducing mercury in artisanal small-scale gold mining. And just say that we were also part of the ACP Phase 2, and we're building on the tools that we created from then. Shortly, overall, I have to say the focus of the work is mainly in Africa and the Caribbean. But as you will see, we have been trying also to assist, we have some capacity to assist the Pacific as relevant, and if there are some things that we could do with that. So if I present shortly our activities, we have some part of activities which are meant to support the regional work as the regions have chosen to do, to carry it out on mercury. So, and some other projects which we are carrying out directly. So in Africa, under the supporting, of course, the regional work has been difficult due to the delayed signature of with the AUC, and that's why we offered to support the Pacific region. The exchanges have been a little bit slow, so now that we see that there is the Mercury Free Pacific campaign, we would be happy to assist you with that if there are some elements that we could be looking at. Also, as we can, assisting in the ratification of some of the countries. And as a first step, we participated at the Mercury Side event under the Clean Round table, which was a few weeks ago, where we provided the resources. Just to flag for the Pacific that as our focus is the mercury added products phase out, I think this is one also of the areas that would be probably high coming up in the Minamata initial assessments. As another activity in the African region, focusing on the artisanal small-scale gold mining, we had a call for proposals in order to find out an NGO to carry out a mercury-free project related to that. We had 8 proposals from African NGOs. 3 have been shortlisted. We have a bit of delay there in the evaluation is still ongoing, as we had some elements missing from one of the project's proposals. In terms of phasing out mercury-added products, so these are the direct activities that we are carrying out in the region. We have collaboration agreements now with 2 NGOs, one in Kenya and one in Nigeria. In Kenya, the focus is on enforcement and with the skin lightening, on mercury-added skin lightening products. Just to mention that we have a campaign towards phasing out mercury-added skin lightening products since 2017. So this is also complementing this other work that is going on. In Nigeria, the project is building up from the ACP phase 2 project, where we are trying to assist in the adoption of the relevant legislation to meet the provisions of the Minamata Convention on the products. In the Caribbean, again, in the part of supporting the region, I have to thank Tessia here. We have very good collaboration since the very beginning. We have regular contact and we have been exchanging on the different elements of the work from our side and from their side. We have been providing input to the training action plan on the waste products, mercury-added products, also on different planning, policy updates, events, etc. And we have also been supporting the CARICOM CLIC, it's the Clean Lighting Coalition fire chat concerning mercury-added lamps, and we are just trying to bring relevant information in the region. Also, we have regular exchanges with the BCRC, the Caribbean, and also with the Jeff Islands, which has very big parts which could either be overlapping or complementing. So I think we need to be keeping an eye on this project, as it could be very important, could be assisting actually on many of the elements that we could be carrying out under this project of the ACP. Now in the direct activities that we are carrying out in the Caribbean, we have established a memorandum of understanding with 3 islands now, with Trinidad and Tobago, Antigua and Barbuda, and St. Kitts and Nevis, which have expressed their interest to working on towards phasing out mercury-added products. Again, the work is building up from the work that we did in phase 2. You can see the guide that we produced on the right of the slide. And the areas of work that we have agreed to work on is to assist them in developing a roadmap to phase out mercury-added products, carrying out a market study on mercury-free alternatives, assessing the institutional capacity, also trying to promote mercury-free product procurement, excuse me, as well as single stream product management pilot work. Excuse me. Also, we are going to try to assist them with elements related to products related to the national implementation plan. With Trinidad and Tobago, the work has advanced quite a lot. We already had an inception meeting in September, and we have started already to draft the roadmap with them. Also, a consultant has been hired to carry out a study on the capacity of the country to transition to mercury-free products. And also, this consultant will be looking at the capacity of the two other islands. Also with St. Kitts and Nevis and Antigua and Barbuda, initially the inception meetings were planned for December, but the countries had to push those in January as they had many other meetings. And as I said, we've been also looking at the synergies between the Jeff Islands and the CLIC, so one can be supporting the other. In terms of the artisanal small-scale gold mining component in the Caribbean, this has been a little bit more challenging. We launched a call for proposal. We had only one proposal from a Suriname foundation, and but then we found another two NGOs from Guyana. But unfortunately, it seems that there is no good capacity of NGOs. We are still trying to find some solution to see if we can find NGOs who could be carrying out such projects. And we've been already in contact with the CARICOM, with the BCRC, also with the Planet Gold for the relevant countries, as this refers mainly to Guyana and to Suriname. We are exploring alternatives, but there is a possibility that we might need to shift this activity to Africa, so to have, for example, two projects instead of one on gold mining. In terms of dissemination activities, we have been contributing to the newsletter and to the digest. Also, we have a web page attached to the Zero Mercury website. We have been retweeting some of the relevant tweets and also trying to cross information on the relevant events like the Global Mercury Partnership LAMP meeting, which was 2 days ago. Also the strike, which is a European mainly project, but dealing with enforcement and which also could be relevant to the countries. We provide input to the policy brief from UNEP, and also the work is being disseminated via the projects on the ground. Also, there are discussions, and we are supporting in terms of the dissemination or relevant materials, and we are continuing this discussion with the CARICOM. Now, in terms of the Ipa Impact, for the time being, we are laying the ground for increasing the awareness in the regions, as I said, with the communication with all relevant bodies in the regions. Also, we have been providing information and assisting the coordination of the different mercury events. Sometimes I have to admit it's difficult to combine the information, or we may sometimes be forgetting things or that could be relevant to other people. So this is quite challenging, and I think it's for all of us to remember about the mercury work. We have been facilitating a wider policy discussion on environmentally sound management of waste, prioritizing and financing, also through our discussions with CARICOM. And then we are supporting the capacity building directly in the 3 islands where we're working on mercury added products, and we will be touching also the elemental mercury part. Also, as I said, the partners in Kenya and Nigeria, they are also supporting their governments with the work on enforcement in the view of adopting the relevant legislation. In terms of lessons learned, I mean, we can see that governments need support in the implementation of Article 4 provisions of the Minamata Convention. As we have said many times, the convention, of course, says that mercury-added products need to be phased out, but it doesn't say how you can do that. Then the situation in developed countries cannot always be applied on the ground in activities in the developing countries. From what we've seen, our support has been welcome. Although sometimes we have to go through the time barriers to allow the countries to take the time for these decisions. And then studies and advice from different regions can also be appreciated by others, as they can help them plan upcoming policies. As I said before, the capacity of NGOs in Caribbean on both areas is relatively lacking, and there are some NGOs, but not so many, and mainly on the artisanal small-scale gold mining. And then coordination between the international projects is necessary, and we could assist with this in trying to avoid overlaps and better use of resources. In terms of gender actions, we have been providing input and participate to the UNEP gender meeting and video. The gender perspective is also included in the call for tender for the artisanal small-scale gold mining for the Africa and the Caribbean, and also the ongoing work on skin lightening creams. As I said, this has a big relevance to women. Also, the EB has published a gender-related report, which you can see on the side, and we communicated this to UNEP so it can be passed on to other partners.
Elena, you just have 2 minutes left.
Okay, thank you, because I cannot see you actually. Thank you. The challenges. Initially, the budget did not correspond to the real timing, so now this is revised, so I hope this can be approved also. Some governments, as I said, may take time. The delay with involving the African partners had also had an effect in our work. And also, we hope to hear also from the Pacific to contribute to their work as relevant. The communication, as I said, needs to be improved. And then due to COVID, of course, whatever was in-person meetings or travel needs to be postponed to the coming years. In terms of the work plan, the activities that I present already, they will just continue for the next year. And then we will continue also, of course, the meetings, the contacts with the regions to assist their work. In terms of expectation, we note the need for flexibility to better adapt the activities. And also, as I mentioned before, we have some changes, but not all below 25% of the budget. We may need some approval in case we need to shift the HGM activity from the Caribbean to Africa. And also see if we can assist actually the Pacific while we're waiting for the African colleagues to start the project. Also, we could propose better communication. Maybe there could be a mailing list server set up or something like that, where we can communicate with the partners relevant information. And I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Elena. Thank you for the comprehensive presentation.
I cannot see
important linkages with what we heard before, notably from Minamata. I would like now that we spend 5-10 minutes for a discussion on this part, covering the update from MEAs and your presentation, Elena. One key question, of course, that I find is how to strengthen the collaboration between the various convention and the program. We could see that the convention have a lot of expertise, a lot of tools, a lot of knowledge. They have already trainings available, and most of them seems to be really willing to cooperate more with the regional hubs and with the project partners. So I would like to open the floor to look about good ideas or examples of how we can further strengthen this cooperation in order to create synergies and avoid overlaps. Thank you. Any reactions or any comments? I don't know if Crystal, you're still with us. Peter is here.
Madam Chair, if you can allow me with first apology, Crystal Pratt, she's unable to join due to technical issues with this call. And just to thank all the presenters for a very clear presentation, highly technical, but also very useful. I have some points to begin with Elena on your very clear presentation. On the issue of phasing out mercury in artisanal gold mining in Africa and I think in the Caribbean, I believe. I just wanted to know whether you have alternatives to that, and which ones are you promoting in this respect? And to the other presentations by the various secretariats, maybe just to highlight the need for cooperation and creating synergies between the various secretariats, especially starting with BRS. I note that already they have clear needs regarding our member states. They have already done the needs assessment, and I believe it would be useful and helpful indeed to have a link between the various regions that are implementing this convention with the secretariat to at least speak out from the needs that are already expressed by member states, rather than doing a duplicate job of trying to identify what the needs are that needs to be addressed. And in so doing, you can also avoid duplication. With Minamata, I think it's a similar point. I noted that they have a compliance committee, and in terms of identifying the needs, their national reports, which we were informed are quite consistent by member states, would be very useful information for this program to acquaint themselves with what is happening at the national level and identifying specific actions that needs to be taken going forward. So I think our planning should be informed by the certain resources that are already available in the secretariat.
Peter, can I ask you, the line is not super clear. Can I ask you to try to switch off the camera just to see if it's better?
Is it better now?
Yes, looks like. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. My question to Minamata is that you mentioned that there is a financial mechanism that will support the capacity of member states or parties to the convention. I don't know whether this is the case for all the other secretariats, and maybe it would be nice to, when the speakers respond, to state whether there is any specific financial mechanism to support our members from the level of the secretariat. And for scientists, just to thank them for the work that they are doing, especially I can see that there are very close links between what CITES is doing and what this program is doing on ocean governance, particularly on the work that we're doing in the Pacific. And I believe it can extend to other regions in Africa, in the Caribbean, given that quite a number of species of interest to CITES are continually being listed, especially for the sharks. And it will be important for some close collaboration to be, build up to improve on this work. So those are some of my comments right now, and I thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Peter. I will pass the floor to the respective convention if they want to reply, to also UNEP and FAO if they want to comment. But Elena, would you like to start? Because that was also a point for you.
Thank you. Yeah, just shortly. I mean, the work it will be pointed by the NGOs who are on the ground, but usually, of course, we will promote the gravity methods which are not using mercury. But then it depends on the type of ground that you have, all the situation. So the work that we can do, we are trying to be complementary to what Planet Gold will be doing, and that's why it's important to have people on the ground. And this is what has been the difficulty, especially for the Caribbean. But we'll see. We are still trying some different ways to find some solution. But in Africa, we have a lot of interest, and most of our work also was in Africa before, so that should be okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Marianne from Minamata.
Thank you. On artisanal and small-scale gold mining, just to augment what Elena has said, the convention doesn't actually ban mercury use in ASGM, so it's very much country and mining community-driven strategies to both eliminate worst practices and implement best practices, hopefully with non-mercury technology, but not exclusively. So I do want to make that distinction and say that there's a lot of work going on in this regard and a lot of experience to draw from. So happy to share that, and also to point you to the Global Mercury Partnership, which has a wealth of information on this topic, in addition to the Planet Gold program. And you mentioned our national reporting. Those are due at the end of this year, so it will take us some time to reconcile those and before we are able to post them all, but I totally agree it'll be a very important source of information on needs going forward. And then with respect to our financial mechanism, I think the question was for others, but I'm happy to answer anything on that as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marianne. Sophie from the CITES Convention.
Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you for the kind words. Yes, we are working quite a lot on sharks and rays and trying to understand how we can support parties in implementing the convention with respect to those species that are only recently being added to the convention over the past 2 COPs. So there are lots of sort of general work in providing guidance on the non-detriment findings and other types of information that is needed. With regard to sort of assistance, we have several different mechanisms through which we can provide assistance. We provide assistance to through the national legislation project, where we can give small grants to help parties develop their national legislation. We have also this consortium that's called the IQWIC, the International Consortium to Combat Illegal Wildlife Crime, or to combat wildlife crime, which is as I said, consortium with World Bank, Interpol, UN, ODC, and others, through which support can be provided directly to individual countries. And as I mentioned, we are now, since the last COP, embarking on a new program that's called the Compliance Assistance Program, where we're trying to provide targeted support to those countries that are coming back again and again through our compliance mechanisms and simply seem to have a more structural and systemic issue with fully meeting the requirements of the convention, and we are trying to address that. And there again, it's individual, and there will be support to the countries to address the problems that they are facing. And finally, as I mentioned, there are these West and Central Africa decisions where support will be completely targeted to countries in West and Central Africa. And there will be a meeting next week to discuss more in detail how that's going to work. So that's another mechanism. But we don't have we don't have GEF funding, we don't have one mechanism to provide support, but we tend to find ways to assist parties when they're sort of requesting support, and we'll find a way to help also with the e-permitting that parties may be interested in embarking on. We'll have ways to help with that. I hope that answered the question. And thanks again for the opportunity here. Thanks.
Thank you very much for your response. Giovanna, you want to complement for the Basel, Rotterdam and Stockholm conventions, please.
As I mentioned in the presentation, for the Basel, Rotterdam and Stockholm Convention, you have this technical assistance plan that is approved by a conference of the parties. And then there is, we have fundraising of the Secretariat for these activities that are approved in this technical assistance plan. And besides this, we have also we also have a financial mechanism. The JEF is also a financial mechanism for the Stockholm Convention. And then countries parties to the Stockholm Convention, that they can work with the JEF implementing agencies as they do for Minamata to develop projects. And they have developed projects to develop national implementation plans or bigger projects to reduce emissions of persistent organic pollutants. And on the cooperation, just from our side, what you've tried to do is, as I said, we sent a message to all the parties, to the partners of the ACP MEAs program, and every time we have a request in the Secretariat, we have colleagues that work in each region and in certain thematic areas, and you address this request for support to these colleagues. So we are organized internally to get this request for cooperation, but perhaps I don't know if we should be more proactive, perhaps in providing support. I don't know. Thanks.
Thank you. Maybe Stefania, you would like to add something on the cooperation with examples?
Yes, I think maybe the secretariats are missing my point a bit, because what I was going on about is not so much assistance to the countries. It's assistance to the SPREPs and the CARICOMs and all these other regional centers to function for you. I think that's the point I was trying to make. Thank you.
Point taken. Thank you. Any other suggestions or comments before we close this session? On my side, I would like to say that, Christelle, you're back. So indeed, I wanted to say that through the various phases of the intra-ACP MEA, we've been, as European Commission, we've been encouraging the cooperation between the regional organization, UNEP-FAO, and the convention. We believe this is extremely important, that we create synergy and strengthen the respective added value. And so I would like to encourage you to continue the cooperation so that we use the material and the expertise that is available in the convention for the benefits of your actions at national level and regional level. Thank you, but Christelle, you're back. Please, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I'm sort of back. I am back a little early. I've been listening, trying really hard to piece the various interventions together because connectivity is not great. But in listening to what I've been able to hear, I would just like, I think that this session has been really important, because what it does suggest to me is that the secretariats of these various multilateral environmental agreements need to work very closely together with our regional agencies, with UNEP and FAO, and with those states parties, but together, so there needs to also be, if you like, perhaps more detailed or slightly longer sessions between the different secretariats and with the regions and states parties, because there are many synergies to be achieved, and just to improve coordination and reduce the competitive burdens, because we're all trying to achieve the same objectives, and that is environmental integrity and environmental sustainability, while balancing all of that with the other pillars of development. So it just strikes me that perhaps we need to think about how we don't just have 10-minute presentations, but we find a way of these secretariats becoming more involved with each other and with us. I hope you heard that, because it's been very difficult the last hour or so. Thank you very much.
Yes, Christelle, the message was clear, and I fully agree. Neil Pratt, would you like to take the floor for the CBD convention, please?
Thank you very much, and I just also want to fully agree with that with that advice. I think it's very, very important, and I think as a start of that, you know, we can be looking at what's envisaged for 2022, and it is important. I mean, certainly just speaking from the CBD Secretariat perspective, it will be important for us to think and plan carefully with UNEP and FAO and with the regional implementing hubs, and it would be far better to do that together. And there are many benefits in that, and so we need to take the time to do that. Thank you.
Excellent. So that will be part of our follow-up point of this meeting. I would suggest that we close that point with this homework, and we go quickly to session 7, our last part, which is about conclusions and recommendations. The first point is you, Bala, you're back, UNEP, and then FAO on strategic priority for 2022. Please.
Thank you, Arlene, and thank you, colleagues. I know certainly compared to the discussions we had and the presentations we had at the last year's steering committee, and comparing that with this steering committee, I'm sure all of us agree that has been an enormous progress in terms of not just implementing a set of activities to tick the box that we are managing the program or the project well, but in terms of how almost all the partners have looked at this beyond just a mere set of activities with some funding that needs to be delivered. I think that to me is an important point that come out of this steering committee meeting. And a few preparatory points before I have a short presentation of about 4 or 5 slides that is aiming to capture some key elements of the discussions yesterday and today are the following. Number one is that certainly it's been a very important steering committee meeting for all of us, given the status and trends of the implementation, and we discussed it, and almost everybody had mentioned the implementation challenges and things like that. But then in preparation for the steering committee, what from UNEP we've done is to reach out to all the partners to not just look at a presentation template for some uniformity, but also requested some very specific inputs that can be provided to the steering committee for some decision making as well. That includes issues related to program, related to activities, and also budgets. So what I'll do is I'll sort of just give me a second. I will start the presentation. Yes. Just to confirm that you can see the presentation. Yeah, okay, thanks. Essentially, I mean, again, I'm not going to all the different all the different points mentioned by the partners and the presentations. This is just to capture a kind of a synthesis of the key elements or the key messages that we have heard during the 2 days of the meeting. One which was quite positive, and that's something which we need to definitely focus on, not just in 2022, but also through the life of this particular program, is the need for better collaboration among partners. I think this again was the, if I'm correct, the last point that we discussed a few minutes ago. Not just between the regional hubs and UNEP and FAO, but also in terms of the MEA secretariats as well. And this point has come out not just in the context of the regional hubs, but also in the context of regional SEAS programs and conventions as well. If you remember the presentations made by the regional SEAS conventions, it was very clearly mentioned in terms of the works related to marine protected areas, the marine plastic pollution and all that kind of a thing. So that's an important, take home message from this PSC. Of course, some of the presentations did mention explicitly, but some of them, there was an implicit mention that there is a need for supporting some flexibility in the activity design and delivery. Given the time that was lost because of the delay in signing the agreement or the pandemic, but also the ongoing challenges in spite of where we are and how much ever we have trained ourselves to do a lot of things online. Repeatedly it was mentioned that it perhaps may not be the most effective way all the time. It will work for certain situations, it may not work for certain situations. So there certainly was a key message to say we are expecting some level of flexibility both in designing the activities into the currently and also into the future, and also the delivery mechanisms, because a large part of the program deals with in-person training programs and workshops, and we need to look at some alternate ways of delivery. So there are some considerations that project steering committee perhaps can provide some guidance or advice. The third point was very clearly on the issue of cross-cutting and strategic nature. I mean, we had several examples of it. Case in point is the discussions on the areas beyond national jurisdiction discussion. Then we also heard just now, based on the presentations of our colleagues from the MEA secretariats, on some of those elements. And there was also a mention about the work of the regional SEAS conventions and CITES secretariat, which Peter Wekesa from the OACPS secretariat has also raised. So certainly the third message was the need to focus on cross-cutting and strategic issues. And lastly, and importantly, he's looking at strengthening capacities and expertise. And what was quite clear was that in as much as this particular program focuses on building capacities of stakeholders and national focal points, NGOs and civil society organizations and all that, there definitely was a fairly subtle, but then it did come out very clearly in a presentation from colleagues from CARICOM Secretariat, if I'm correct. I said that, look, it's not about building capacities and expertise of others out there, but we also need to build our own capacities and expertise ourselves, because the situation is changing, the priorities are changing. There are so many different activities that are happening that relate to the set of activities that we are trying to do in the months and years to come through the life of this particular program. But if you're going to be consolidating, what I tried to do is to put it under 3 or 4 headings. One is looking at the issue of knowledge management, stakeholder management, creating an impact, and consolidation. I think that's to an extent where the synopsis of several points. Certainly in terms of knowledge management, looking at creating platforms for sharing knowledge, online and offline, on stakeholder engagement, working with youth, women, parliamentarians. We did discuss it yesterday, even during the presentation, in terms of inputs, both from colleagues from OACPS Secretariat and European Union, in terms of support that can be provided and the reach out that can be provided, and also to media. In terms of creating an impact, exchange of expertise, sharing information, and in consolidation, looking at capacity building, institutionalization, and networking. I think that the last point of institutionalization is something which had come out very clearly. And if I remember it correct, the last project steering committee meeting, this actually was also highlighted to the extent there was a request to internalize a lot of elements of this particular program within the institutions. So certainly there has been quite an important level of priority that has been given to this particular element, which has been raised by a number of colleagues who made the presentations yesterday and today. In terms of some ideas in response, of course, these are ideas that need to be further developed, which perhaps are intricately present in elements of the approved program through some activities, but there are certain elements of it which need to be expanded and that need to be addressed, with some very specific follow-up actions and things like that. So essentially, I just sort of tried to capture it in about 5 or 6 components. One is the need for additional stakeholder engagement, as I mentioned, in terms of youth, women, media, parliamentarians, raising the voice of ACP member states, and that also was discussed and raised today in support of member states in participation and in preparations for various negotiation meetings and the governing body meetings. We did discuss about support to the Africa group of negotiators, Caribbean and the Pacific countries. SEFA repeatedly raised the point in terms of not just working through at the level of countries, but also at the level of regional hubs and at the level of regions as well. And if some of the colleagues who were with us during the preparatory meetings we did for the CBD, the Biodiversity Convention, SBSTA and SBI, if you remember, one very critical point that was positively presented by the participants was that given the current situation of virtual meetings, many of the regions or countries do not have an opportunity to meet at the regional levels. Either there are global meetings where they participate, or there are national level events that they are a part of. So they really appreciated the possibility of coming together through the regional platforms. So we definitely need to engage and we need to expand. It's just not about CBD COP15, but there are other processes, including the chemicals conventions, the post-2020 discussions that are happening within the chemicals cluster as well. So looking at raising the voice of the countries within the regions on a number of MEA negotiations. There were mentions about the issue, and Neil Pratt from the CBD Secretariat did mention about this, but also it was mentioned through a number of presentations on the issue of need for specific focus and support on knowledge management and capacity development, both within the program in terms of our own capacities and our own knowledge that can be better managed and shared, but also to the external audience. And that's where the issue of regional hubs, through the 3 regional hubs that we are working with, SPREP, CARICOM and African Union Commission, as a kind of a starting point for us to work on technology transfer, knowledge management, capacity development and awareness. Of course, the reason I'm mentioning some of them, even though, as I mentioned, they are a part of the program, approved program, is that we certainly need more resources and we certainly need some very specific structured programs or activities in support of some of these elements. To an extent, we are covering some of these, but there is also an indication that that coverage is not by design, but by default. I think we need to make it into a design-based activity here. We also need to look at the transformative change in terms of looking at the new technologies and through a number of enabling activities. Again, there was a mention of support to the national biodiversity strategies and action plans, national reports, and our convention colleagues did mention support that is required. And as of now, the program does have some capacity development and support activities for countries to deal with it, but we still do not have anything more specific, and it may be worthwhile to consider some of these elements as well. The resolution on biodiversity from OACPS, and the reason I sort of singled it out was for the following reasons. Number one is the first biodiversity resolution. Number two is that this is a resolution that is not made by the ministers of environment, which is very traditional and classical way of looking at some of these resolutions. For the first time, I think we should have really celebrated it and we should have made a big media noise about it earlier, is that this resolution has been put together by ministers of finance and foreign affairs. So we are looking at 79 country ministers who actually for the first time had come together to discuss biodiversity. And there is a need for us to look at the possibility of operationalizing some elements of this resolution, because it's directly relevant not just to the program, but also to the countries and also the region where this particular program is working. And lastly, creating networks. There was a very clear mention that we need more expertise, we need more guidance and advice, because a lot of things are now interconnected. We are looking at multi-sectoral approaches, we are looking at transdisciplinary approaches. So there is a need for us to create some expert networks that can help and support not just some partners within the ACP MEAs program, but also to make use of this expertise as we move forward in terms of future implementation. In terms of work plans for 2022, this slide is more a consolidation of an overarching element of it. All the partners have submitted this, written submissions to the PSC for consideration. They are compiled and shared. They also provided written inputs for consideration by PSC on modifications for work plan and related budgets. Because of very short timeline, we probably may not be able to address all of it, but this consolidated information has already been shared with colleagues from European Union and OACPS, FAO and others, so that we actually can, the PA steering committee can make a decision in terms of appropriate recommendations for some of those elements that have been compiled and presented. The other key point are the activities pending implementation during 2020 and 2021 are being prioritized by all partners. So that has an implication not only in terms of activities, but also in budgets, because we are into the second tranche or second installment of seeking the budget from EU for implementation of the program from UNEP side. But we actually need some time guided by the project steering committee now in terms of how do we deal with the budget situation in terms of the budgets that are allotted for 2020, 2021 and see how much of it can be repurposed and how much of it can be used for some of these additional elements of the work program that can complement the already agreed programs as it was agreed in 2019. And lastly, during the 2022, the year of implementation, the focus definitely will be on consolidation, cooperation, and complying with the partnership agreement as it is requested. So those are some of the points which is able to pick up fairly quickly. But last point is a request to all the partners to note our new social media, on social media details, because we still feel that sometimes the handles are not appropriately used, so we are losing out on better outreach. So I've just provided some of the social media handles out there, and I'll sort of leave it at that. And thank you very much, Arali and Crystal, for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Bella, for this very good summary. I think I had also a few points to share, and you covered quite a lot of mine, so that will help me to gain some time. Would we have now similar feedback from FAO or not? Bella, you need to help me because the agenda says that I see Kim Han. Yes. Yes, please.
Thank you, Aurélie. Thank you, Balakrishna. First of all, I wanted to take the opportunity to thank everyone at this meeting. It has been incredibly constructive, and there's a lot of food for thought to further improve our work. So thanks for that. And thank you, Lado, for sharing the screen. So I'll be quite brief. Mainly focused on the strategic priorities for 2022. If I may ask the next slide, please. So I would like to start off with the fact that the FAO part of the ACP MEAs program is aligned with the new FAO's strategic framework and its vision to support the 2030 agenda through the transformation to more efficient, inclusive, resilient, and sustainable agri-food systems for a better production, better environment, better nutrition, and better life, leaving no one behind. I think it's important to mention this because it's aligned with all of our work. It's aligned with the EU Green Deal. And so we're all working towards the same objective. So I wanted to start with this slide, therefore. Next slide, please. So our main strategic objective is also very simple for 2022. We would like to support our countries and regions to implement the ACP MEAs 3 program as per the agreed and validated national and regional work plans, and also in alignment with the program's logical framework matrix and overall work plan. Next slide, please. So regarding output 1, in terms of integrating biodiversity and sound chemicals management into national agricultural policies, we will support governments to further develop national biodiversity policy action plans in support of the implementation of global plans of action. For example, the development of the Plant Genetic Resources for Food and Agriculture Action Plan in St. Lucia, and support with possible reviews of NBSUPs, the National Biodiversity Strategies, following the Global Biodiversity Framework post-2020. We would also like to continue. Oh, sorry, I was still on the previous slides. We also would like to continue support in building institutional and technical capacity of national public institutions to facilitate the implementation of policies and plans that promote ecosystem-based, resilient and productive farming systems. Next slide, please. Regarding our activities under Output 2 that relate to national field implementation activities, we will continue to support with the implementation of national pesticide risk reduction plans as a continuation to phase 2 of the program, which consists of identifying HHPs, looking at risk assessment and risk control, and phasing out HHPs, highly hazardous pesticides, and promotion of safer alternatives. We would also like to continue strengthening extension curricula and trainings on the adoption of ecosystem-based practices and approaches, build capacity for producers and processors through the delivery of trainings, including farmer field schools, focused on climate-resilient ecosystem-based approaches to agriculture. And finally, we would like to enhance linking producers to private and public economic incentives, including existing sustainable value chain initiatives. Next slide, please. So at the regional level, on the Output 3, we will, in continuation of phase 2 of the program, support the development and finalization of the reduction strategies of highly hazardous pesticides. As already mentioned in the previous presentation, we hope to establish the regional pesticides registration and management schemes for the Pacific. We will be organizing jointly with regional partners a series of thematic webinars on the post-2020 GBF. And in this regard, I would also like to thank Christelle for having raised this issue after the MEAs session, because in these type of activities, I think it's important that we brainstorm also in a more broader perspective and to build on the expertise that's already out there. So that's something that I've noted down for this particular activity. We will support also the integration of agriculture considerations in existing regional biodiversity strategies. And here I'm specifically thinking of the biodiversity strategies of the Southern African Development Community and the Eastern African Community. And we will define activities for scaling up good agricultural practices and approaches to accelerate the transition to sustainable agriculture. Next slide, please. Thank you. At global level, we will continue to inform the global governance for biodiversity through organizations of side events, for example, at CBD COP15, through policy briefs. We will continue our activities to prepare countries and regions for CBD COP15, in particular as it relates to agriculture and biodiversity for food and agriculture. Lastly, as I already mentioned yesterday, we will be organizing a global seminar on regulations to better protect pollinators from pesticides, whereby the main outcome that is expected of this seminar are concrete recommendations and options for pesticide regulators and policymakers on how to strengthen national legislation with the aim to minimize risks of pesticides to pollinators. Next slide, please. I think there's still one slide. Yeah, thanks a lot. So this is the last slide. These are just some elements that I listed following these 2 days meetings that I think will be important in terms of strengthening the implementation of ACP MEAs 3. So I think we will more actively identify activities that would benefit from partnership synergies. We will also more strategically assess opportunities for the synergized implementation of MEAs. And I think it will be important to more proactively share networks with UNEP, in particularly those of relevance to policy work, to ensure a more coherent implementation of the program. And finally, I'd written something, an additional point. I think it will also be important to strengthen cross-regional cooperation, South-South cooperation. And we have a few activities that I've also referred to in the course of this meeting, where we try to strengthen exactly that. So those were the main points I wanted to raise. And again, thank you very, very much for this these excellent 2 days. And I think I'm speaking on behalf of the entire FAO team.
Thank you very much, Kim Han, for your participation as well over the 2 days, and great contributions. I would align to your suggestions on the last slide on the screen, maybe adding something about ownership and impact. But this is I think for all the partners, it's a challenge, but making sure that we build on ownership for long-term impact. Now we are moving to the concluding remarks, and I would like to ask if all the partners are still around, and if we could maybe just focus on a few key takeover, a few points we want to share, and maybe skip all the formalities. Of course, I would like to thank you all for your participation. Thanks also the organizers. Say how happy I am with those conversations. Happy that we are really building from one year to the other and making this program really impactful. But before giving maybe my 3 points, who would like to start? Christelle, would you like to share some concluding remark already? Or I have Christelle, Bala, Kim Han. Would you like to say some concluding remarks?
Thank you very much, Aurélie, and I hope people can hear me. I could barely hear what you had to say, but I did pick up that you had thanked all partners as well as those that have participated over the last 2 days, and I join with you in expressing our appreciation for the constructive exchanges that we have all had. I really just wanted perhaps to just focus on a couple of things as we close, and that was what I picked up. Really the need for strengthening our cooperation and collaboration across the various multilateral environmental agreements that our member states have signed and ratified, and need to actually meet certain commitments and obligations. There is huge scope for stronger cooperation and collaboration in that regard. As well, 2022 will be an important year for not only the implementation of this particular program, the MEA3 program, but it provides opportunity for how we, as the OACPS and as the European Union and as partners, really work together to inform and influence the outcomes for a number of important multilateral processes, and in particular the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework, which will be discussed and finalised at COP15. And so I wanted to just highlight a point that Bala raised, and that is the Biodiversity Resolution that was adopted by the 112th Council of Ministers, the OACPS Council of Ministers. And its intent was to use it as a basis for preparations for COP15 and other related multilateral processes. And so in that regard, I think that there is huge scope for us to work together, and particularly to work closely with the regional hubs, with UNEP and FAO, with the MEA secretariats, and in particular the CBD secretariat, to see how we support our member states to engage in a very strong and constructive way that addresses and meets what they need and want. And so I just would offer that that is a great starting point, and it means that we need to continue to work closely together beyond just this meeting. For me, it brings together our various negotiators and negotiating groups. It brings together the 79 member states of the OACPS. It brings together the 6 regions of the OACPS. It brings together OACPS European Union partnership in terms of our international cooperation and advocacy on these important issues. And it allows us to really be able to raise our voices and our visibility on things that are important for our people and our planet and the respective prosperity of the both. So I just have that to say, and just to thank you all again, but particularly to thank you, Aurélie, for taking the lion's share of the responsibilities of this meeting. I thank you for that, and I apologise for not being able to really participate fully in these particular sessions, but thank you all.
Thank you very much, Christelle. You're welcome. Any concluding remark from FAO or UNEP? Or yes, yes,
okay,
please.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Chair. On behalf of FAO, I would like to share 2 views with you. First, I think that the meeting is very successful. In my view, it has 3 good. Number 1, good participation and representativeness. We had about 50 participants in total from all relevant parties and external partners, such as some MEAs conventions. Number 2, good presentations. We had 23 presentations and well reviewed the progress and the impacts of the program implementation, analyzes the gaps, challenges, discuss the work plan of 2022, and make available recommendations. And the works of the MEAs conventions were also well exchanged. Number 3, good discussions with important and available recommendations. In all, it is very fruitful and successful. So congratulations and thanks for UNEP organization and the support of the EC and OACP, active participation and interaction of all colleagues, and excellent sharing of Aurélie and Christelle. I think we show special thanks to the Bala, Kian, and the UNEP and the FAO colleagues and all regional and national colleagues. Second view, some takeaway and following up. As my colleague Kian said that this program is fully in line with FAO new strategy on agri-food system. It's a UN agri-food system, in which biodiversity is a key element. And the program is very important to FAO, agriculture, and farmers. FAO will continue work together with all partners to implement the program successfully, delivering more concrete outcomes and outputs. Based on discussions and recommendations, I want to highlight that FAO will widely cooperate with all relevant MEAs partners, especially with UNEP, regional and national partners, and keep synergy between this program was other program and initiative relevant with MEAs, climate change, biodiversity, chemical management to achieve more results. FAO will continue to be more result-focused and pay attention on concrete action impacts in field and to farmers to make a real change and transmission in restoration, biodiversity, and transforming to sustainable agriculture. As highlighted by the area that will pay attention on the training women and the youth. This will be included in our communication strategy and plan. In addition, we might be more flexible in action designing and delivery, especially when facing challenges. We will also improve communications and visibility. At the end, we have a special request to EU that hope EU could help to release the installment soon, enable the program to be implemented in the countries. So thank you all of you very much. Looking for close cooperation with all of you, also support from the EU and OACP Secretariat. Have a good day and or evenings. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for those closing remarks. Shall I pass the floor to UNEP for closing remarks as well? Bala, do you have some additional? Yes, thank you.
No, just to say thank you very much. Thanks a lot, Aurelie. Thanks a lot, Crystal, colleagues from OACPS Secretariat, Peter. A big thank you to all the partners for their support. I know this is a complex project in terms of various dimensions. So without the support of the partners, it's extremely difficult, for a coordinating agency to do much. So a big word of thank you to all of you, and certainly we sort of will follow all the different ideas and suggestions and recommendations that are made and consolidate some of them in 2022. But a couple of points is that we will share the report of this steering committee meeting yesterday and today in about a week's time for all of you to have a quick look and then review and send your comments and suggestions. That will be the report of of this 2 days of the steering committee meeting. But given the nature of inputs and suggestions from partners to actually look at the activities and the budgets, given the expenditure and given the challenges of 2020 and 2021 that has been submitted to the steering committee, I'm sure colleagues from EU and OACPS Secretariat and FAO and UNEP would sort of like to specifically review those inputs, including inputs from UNEP and FAO, and provide your recommendations so that together we can consolidate and have the overall report of the project steering committee to be ready with some very concrete activities or recommendations for the subsequent years. So we certainly look forward to that guidance and support from the EU and OACPS Secretariat, and also collaboration with FAO, which certainly has a lot of room for enhancing that, and we will certainly focus on that in 2022. So just to say thank you very much for all the participants for your inputs and collaboration, and this actually enhances the responsibility for us to deliver better next time. So keep in touch and have a good day, have a good evening, and over to you, Aurelie. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bala. On my side, I'll be fast as well, just to acknowledge indeed that congratulations for all the activities you carried out. Also, although the situation was difficult, there's a lot of information, and I confirm that we are currently reviewing your report and looking at activities achieved and activities that still need to be achieved and consolidated next year. We are also looking at the adjustments that you are proposing, and we will be back to you. I had 3 main points linked to recommendations. One, of course, is the synergies that was mentioned by all of you, synergies between the partners, between the regions, synergy with other programs, and also synergies between the Rio Convention. So just to share with you that on our side, in our approach to the programs we will develop in partner countries, we will really look at creating synergies between climate and biodiversity, agriculture and biodiversity, between pollution and circular economy and job creation. So really proposing integrated response to our partner country. This is very important. Secondly, really please look at the impact when you look at the activity you deployed, really to try to maximize the impact of our actions. Also looking at partners and stakeholders that can be involved. And the last one is about ownership. I already mentioned it, but it's really important that we have the ownership at all level, local level, but also working with national government, so that again we can have transformative impact actually at the national level. And of course, next year will be an important year. As Christelle mentioned, we look forward to continue the discussion with you around the various COPs. As EU, we will be very active on that front with our partners. And so I look forward to continue this discussion. I wish you already a nice end of the year. Looking forward to see you hopefully next year, and in the meantime, of course, take good care. Voila. Have a nice.
Sorry. Sure.
Yes.
Thank you. No, I just would like to thank colleagues at UNEP, Ladu, Mary, Louis, and Rosemary, who really were extremely supportive and worked very hard to pull this together. And I'll be failing in my duty if I don't acknowledge their support and help. Thanks a lot, colleagues. Happy New Year and happy holiday season. Keep in touch. Stay safe. Thank you.
Stay safe. Happy holidays. Happy New Year.
Bye. Thanks to all. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Arlie. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Be in touch, Bala.
Sure. Thanks, Krislan. Thank you very much.